Scott Lawrence, thank you so much for joining me on the Rugby Rundown and the official appointment as head coach and general manager of the USA men's national team. It's been something that you've kind of been doing for the last year, so it becomes official. How's the kind of feeling towards being out there in the public?
I think it's good. Just the work's going to continue, and that's the important part. Is we built some momentum this year, and that's one thing that's out of our way to now continue to. So just kind of it wasn't much of a difference. Woke up and did the same thing the next day, and we'll continue to do that.
And in talk of that, what you've done already, obviously the Eagles have been on tour in the summer, and then we're in Spain recently, a success in Spain. When you reflect back on that time that you've been involved with the side, how important, how impressive have you been with the boys and just the general build and buy-in to what you're trying to do?
Well, I think we started with a leadership group, which we called FIDO. So if you're familiar with the space program, that's flight dynamics, and that group was really specifically chosen. We went through a bit of a journey where we went off-site with that smaller group. We pulled in former Eagle alumni, and we really shaped kind of the direction for where we want to go. And when we talk about an American way, it really was a collaborative thing between coaches and staff and players and former Eagles to kind of determine that. So the buy-in was great, but it really started with an immense buy-in from the FIDO group first, enabling them to lead. So giving them the tools and actually, investing in them as leaders, not just rugby leaders, but general leaders of men. And then from there, they just took over.
I think your American way is very obviously relevant, and you talk in terms of Operation Mercury. I know you've been very public in how you're calling these space programs. It's now Operation Gemini. Can you give us a little bit of a snapshot how you see this short term? What are you planning as now the official men's head coach and general manager?
I think there's three big plays that we want to get done this year. The first thing is that our U20s need to finish top four this year as a goal, looking to win the Junior World Trophy within the next year. I think it's important that our U20s move up to the Junior World Championship and play against the top 12 teams in the world, other 11 each year leading in. So that's number one is to do that. Number two was this idea of growing a national academy. I think the 18 to 21 landscape is at times a lost talent area where players are lost in the mix. And so a place to capture that, but do it in a full-time environment and foster players that can be professionals. So really, point two is about growing the base, starting at National Academy, and then hopefully that academy will feed not only the anthem, but really Major League Rugby in general as an accelerator. And then, the final thing is we've got an opportunity to get more time into assembly this year. So, potential of 11 test matches this year, 13 weeks together as a USA squad. So in order to do that, that means that we have to increase the player welfare. We have to invest in a year-round program that's cooperative and integrated with Major League Rugby. And leagues around the world are a little bit more arm's length, not just because they deal with a lot of different national teams. Ours is, pretty focused. So it's really kind of those three things. Start with the U20s, or get them promotion, give a place for our U18s to go that leads to a professional that could put them in the best position to be an Eagle. And then finally, at the top end, just build cohesion and start to continue to introduce competition in new places in the squad.
It's brilliant. It makes me want to come out of retirement, Scott, and maybe try my hand and try and get back in that US squad. Let's just talk about a little bit about the anthem, because I obviously know you've been a little bit part of that in the organisation of it. It's new to Major League Rugby this season with USA Rugby and World Rugby partnered. How important is that anthem side going to be? You talk about that National Academy setup building towards 2031. What's your take on just the importance of anthem?
I think for this year in particular, it's this idea of having an expanded playing base. We know that there was a potential that the American playing base, particularly at the younger ages, would be lost this season just due to contraction of the league. So I think in the immediate priority was just to keep that going. I think going forward, when we look at the teams in our space that have jumped ahead of us in our tier, okay, so Portugal, the Chile, Uruguay, they've all have one professional side that brings together the bulk of their players. And cohesion is in time together is such a massive thing for any team. But when you go to the international level, it becomes a differentiator of performance, especially when we're looking for World Cup qualification. So when I think of the way this team can operate going forward, we will, one of the charters I've given the GM and the coaches there is, we want to have, out of the 31 Americans that are in that squad right now, we want to see at least 10 of them, so 1/3 strike rate, as professionals that can start every week in Major League Rugby by next year, and to have 2 new Eagles come out of that program that I didn't have on my radar before for this year. And that'll just grow over time. We will never have a full, say, the Eagles playing in the Major League Rugby and then qualifying. That won't happen. That's not realistic, and it's not healthy for anybody to do that. But a core of players in that squad, and a core that, like you see in Chicago right now, like you see in DC and Utah, right? There's a core of Eagles in those teams. Certainly helps in cohesion and to build towards national team performance.
My last kind of question is obviously looking at this year, and it's just brilliant what you're saying, and I really believe what you're doing, Scott, is absolutely the right way. You've got it's not really a new tournament in regards of a yearly PNC coming up. That's kind of, I know there's a couple of July test matches. How are you looking at this year in terms of the projection for what you are wanting to achieve in the future? How important is this year for the Eagles?
Yeah, it's really a 2-year plan here, because qualification for the World Cup is looking more and more like it's going to happen next year in 2025, which is a year ahead of schedule, which means that the qualification team needs to be built through this cycle and into the next year, and then that team will evolve again should they qualify into the next World Cup. But I think this year is about building a team that's going to be able to compete for the next 2 years, but looking at a percentage of the squad that is not quite ready, but will project. And that's always when you think in those cycles, that's always your balancing act that you have to do. So I think this year, with the capping of 14 new Eagles over the course of 2023, we started to introduce competition, new faces, all with an aim of qualification.
It's absolutely great. I really, really do appreciate you, Scott, coming on to the Rugby Rundown. And a quick one as well, though, in terms of your coaching group, Nick Easter, Iramir, are they going to stay around?
Yeah, so we'll have Alama and Nick will both stay around this year. Blake Bradford, who was scrum coach last year, Blake will be on board. And then we'll be using Elvis Savelli as soon as he's done with his U20 duties to do skill set development. And Alex Ross has just been a massive part of the performance of the team, and really excited to see not only what he's done with the team, but the roots that he's growing and connections inside of our domestic pro competition, and seeing some of that replicated at places across the league. So all of those folks with Alama coming into the country, arriving next week, we've now got an Eagle staff that's on home soil and watching players and working together in one location. And it's this is the recipe. These are things we need to put in to be successful.
Brilliant, Scott. Thank you so much. From a former Eagle to a former Eagle, I wish you all the very best. I'll be watching closely. Scott Lawrence, thank you for coming on the Rundown.